Welcome back, guys. It's episode 9 of Where is John's Daughter? I'm Jamie. I'm here with a co-host today. Natalie is on vacation. Courtney, if you want to say hi.
Hello.
And then we have a special guest today, Meghann. She is a therapist. I don't want to brutalize that, so you can introduce yourself.
All right. Hi, everyone. Meghann. I am a licensed professional counselor. So, yes, in other words, a therapist and also a friend. Happy to be here.
Yeah. I'm happy for both of you to be here. I couldn't do this alone. I need more friends. I need sidekicks. So thank you for joining.
We
Both
got
of you.
you.
All right. So I guess where should we start? Should we just kind of start with, I'll just give a little bit of background. I was in the dental field for 15 years, and that's how I met Courtney. We worked together in Denver at an office, and here we are now. How many years later? Like 7 or something.
Yeah, at least.
She now lives across the country, and I live across the country, so we're nowhere near
Yeah.
each other, unfortunately.
Now, yeah.
But I'm closer to Meghann now, and Meghann and I have an interesting story. I don't know if you want to lead with that or if you want me to lead with that.
Let's just dive right in. Yes.
Okay,
How do
we'll
we know
dive
each
in.
other?
So Meghann and I met because we were dating the same person at the same time. On
The
multiple
story never
occasions.
goes.
I had met this guy in college. To me, he was single, and we kind of started a mild relationship. It wasn't super serious because I was moving away after college and he was probably going his separate direction. And then I moved out to California, and he kept in touch with me. Did he have to? Nope. We weren't nowhere near each other. And he still kept in touch with me and then continued a relationship with me and wanted more of a relationship. Meanwhile, he was still dating Meghann.
I met this individual in undergrad and started dating, and he went to grad school in at the same school where Jamie was in Florida, and so we were long distance at the time. He took full advantage of that, and then we ended things like in 2012. So when did you meet him? Do you remember what year?
2011.
Okay. So there was a year overlap there, but then we kept in touch and he rekindled things for a little bit in 2014 and 15. And Jamie, you were dating him until when?
Until 15.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there
Yeah.
was 1 year overlap on each end of your relationship,
And
basically.
let's not forget the multiple people in between.
Oh, yeah. We
He
weren't
had
the only ones, we came to find out. Yeah, he had many.
the point where we all thought we were the only girlfriend. Like, that's how intense the relationship was.
Right? Yeah. And yeah, he was living in California, living with you, I think. And I went to visit him.
Yeah, so it gets so interesting. Lots of lies, lots of fake work trips. Let's put it that way. I dated him long distance as well for those years. And then I want to say in 2015 is when he finally moved out to California and was living with me. And then somehow going back and forth on these fake work trips, but like visiting his other girlfriends he left behind in different states. Florida, New York. And at this point, it was myself. There was someone in Florida. There was someone in New York. And I mean, that gets expensive. But then I decided he was getting a little fishy. There was something fishy going on. He was being very like secretive. And he had a hard drive at my house. And so I plugged it into my computer. And there was all these photos from over the years of him with another girl, other girls, like, and I'm like, whoa, because we're definitely together. And so at that point, I had kicked him out.
No,
And
I know the story well.
Yeah. So at that point, I was like, "Okay, we're done. I'm kicking you out."
No, but no, because he was still living with you when we confronted, remember we confronted him over FaceTime?
He was
Wasn't he
actually in
still
his own place down the
was
street.
he? Okay, okay.
Down the street.
So you had
He
found, okay, never mind then.
Yeah. He I kicked him out, and one of my good friends, my roommates, who's known him since the beginning pretty much, she took all of his clothes and, like, went out with a pile of clothes out into the street, and this is in LA.
Nice.
Just tosses them up in the air, and they just fall to the ground. She's like, "Jamie, I just threw his clothes out there." She was so excited about it. Shout out Jillian. Um, and then he goes and gets an apartment down the street because he's like, "If I moved any further away from you, I knew we wouldn't see each other, so I'm gonna be right," I mean, literally at the end of the street. And then that's when I think at that point, now he's living free, right? You fly out, you're visiting him, I'm living up the street, like, he's still kind of chatting with me, he's got this other girlfriend in New York, and then I still feel like he was getting fishy again. I went through his iPad, and the cloud saves everything. Everything.
Thank you, Apple.
Found not only multiple other women from apps in LA, but, conversations with you. So, like, he had rekindled with you again,
Mhm.
and then that's when I reached out to you.
I received a text that said, "Hey, this is Jamie, so and so's girlfriend, and it looks like you guys have been talking. Is something going on?" And funny enough, his ex-girlfriend before me was a Jamie. So I was so confused. I was like, "Jamie, why did you change your number? What do you mean you're dating now? I don't, and no, I'm not talking to him anymore, but I was. So what's going on here?" And then you responded with your full name. And that's when I realized, oh, and then you said, "I've been with him for 4 years." And I think my response was, "Oh shit." Here we go. Because I knew one day I just knew that something was going to come out. I knew not that I knew because he told me or admitted to anything, but I knew because I sensed it, just like you sensed, he was being shady and hiding things. But our whole relationship, he would gaslight me whenever I tried to call him out on that and tell him, literally made me think that I was just crazy and paranoid. Gaslighting can make you question your own reality sometimes. And so I did. And when you reached out, it was almost like a sigh of relief. Like, I'm not crazy.
Validating. Yeah.
And we just started comparing notes. And I mean, we texted for hours, I think.
Mhm. For, like,
Just,
days. Like,
yeah, with
and we were both
stories.
upset too, both emotional, both upset,
Yeah.
crying. We only understood each other. Like
Right? Like, what is going on? And we both just, I think, felt for each other immediately. We knew he's the bad guy. He's the one
Mhm.
in the wrong here. He was the liar and cheater, and we were victims. And so we really kind of bonded over that.
Yeah. And I think too is, like, you got a different side of him than what I got.
Mhm.
I feel like he kept projecting everything onto me, um, and questioning me, and then you were questioning him. So it was just, yeah, it was an interesting way of how he acted with me, I should say. Um, he would do such weird things, like break up with me and then go on a trip to the Bahamas, and then he would come back, and then he'd wanna get back together. And I'm like, "Oh, you broke up with me because you went on a trip to the Bahamas with another girl."
Right.
Like,
So convenient.
yeah, I know. And then I think so we how do I wanna say this? We, like, surprised him.
Confronted. Yeah.
Yeah, confronted him. Um, I was in his apartment and was waiting for him to come home from work, and I said to Megan, I go, "How about we FaceTime?" So then there's no like, you can't get out of this, right? Can't lie to us about it. And she's like, "Alright, I'm down."
Let's do it.
So he walks in and I'm like, I got her on my phone. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, say hi." And he looks at it, and then he looks again, and, I mean, you saw his face.
Oh my god, deer in the headlights. I mean, he just went white like he saw a ghost, and I was just like, "Hey, mother effer, remember me? We know each other now." And I will never forget, he just immediately grabbed you and pushed you out the door of his apartment. I had never seen him, like, be physical like that, so I was like, "Oh my gosh, is she safe? Is she okay?" And so I stayed on the phone with you and just you were like, "I know I'm okay, but my suitcase is still in there with all my stuff." There was no apology, there was no, "Okay, I'm caught, I give up, you got me, I'm so sorry." It was just
Mhm.
anger that we had finally outsmarted him.
Yeah. Um, I'm trying to think. I wanna say, like, right before that, before, like, the second time around with him, when me and you were introduced, um, he did apologize. So when I caught him the first time, right, um, I met him somewhere and at the Americana, actually, in Glendale, and he's sitting in his car, and he's just bawling his eyes out. And, like, snot, the whole 9 yards, and I'm like, "I've never seen this guy act this way before." Like, okay, maybe he really truly is sorry, and so that's why I went back for the second time, right? And then we met, obviously, after that, but I it's like he got caught, and so he's trying to fix it, but none of it was true at all, none of it was honest. He was still doing it,
He
and
probably
then there's
still is today.
oh, yeah, 100%. And there were so many other girls, like, Megan wasn't the only one I reached out to. I reached out to another one that was in New York, and the whole time too, he's, like, trying to get you to move to LA, he's trying to get
Mhm,
her to move to LA.
mhm.
He's looking for jobs for the 2 of you guys, like, helping you job hunt type of thing. Just so
That's so wild. Like, that's gotta be so exhausting. And why would you want everybody to be in the same city? Like
Right. Less flights, less money, I guess.
Yeah, true, true.
But yeah,
yeah.
it's
I
so
think too, it was
bizarre.
that final straw was my birthday weekend. I'm out of town on a work trip, and I'm like, "Okay." And he's going to Chicago for the work trip, packs his winter stuff because it's January, and ends up driving to Temecula. Girl from New York flies in for some kind of event. They're away in Temecula that weekend, and then there was a question that came up. She goes, I thought it was weird that he had all this winter stuff in his car and in his suitcase. I'm like, "Why do you have your
For
Pico and
Temecula.
your, like, all these things," you know? Because he was never going to Chicago. He was going south to Orange County or area, you know?
The lies,
So
yeah.
that's what made me kind of question it too after I found that, hard drive, then I figured it out and, yeah, called him out also.
But it's as we're talking about this and just thinking about all of the women that you have spoken with on this podcast, and I think a lot of listeners probably think, "Why did they go back?" or "Why did they stay?" And, someone like that can be very charming and convincing. It's hard.
100%. He had everyone fooled. Natalie
Mhm.
fooled my family, my brother. My brother, I remember him saying, "Oh, I like him because he buys me things." That's Maxwell for you.
Um,
I mean, yeah, it takes you out to dinner, buys you gifts,
mhm.
and then eventually did you ever talk to him again after that FaceTime?
No,
No? Okay. Well, he lived
that
down the
was
street
it.
from me, so that was hard, but I learned how to separate myself from the thought of us, right? There was never gonna be an us with him. Whoever he's dating today, I feel bad because you're not the only one, I'm sure.
Mhm.
So then I just started thinking, okay, this is never gonna be more than what this is right now. So then I just kinda was like, well, screw it. I'll go out to dinner with you. Buy me dinner. Okay, you wanna take me on a let's go to the beach for the weekend.
Let's take
Newport. I don't
advantage of
know.
this, yeah.
Okay. But that was it. And I lived my own life on the other side of it, you know? So
Yeah.
and then I moved. I met Kevin and here I am today.
And
Turn the
you guys get
tables on
along
him.
because you guys are friends and yeah, so
Mhm.
I
yeah.
will say I do he brought us together, so that's probably about the only good thing that came from that is
Yeah, and
that
Iris.
Yes, and Iris. Like, he came to visit, and all my friends in, South Florida met him, went out with him, hung out with them. It's yeah, he was his charming self. They at that point thought, we're seeing each other just like I did, and yeah, he had everyone fooled.
Yeah. Well, we dodged a bullet. We both dodged a bullet. All right, so that's why we're here. We're talking about narcissism and sociopaths and,
Fun topic.
I know.
Yeah,
And funny
yeah.
enough, because I went to therapy, he's like, "Let's go to couples therapy." And I'm like, "Okay." It's $175 a session, cash. And he's still doing all this crap behind my back. He's got her fooled. And then you kind of felt fooled too, didn't you? Because of things you know?
Exactly, 100%. And I think the hardest part for me was that I knew, but I stopped trusting my gut because he just truly made me feel like my reality was not my reality. My perception was wrong and my gut was wrong and I was crazy and, all of those things that come with dating someone who is a narcissist and basically a psychopath,
Yeah.
has no regard for anyone else. And, he just gaslit the shit out of me. And so I think that was hard for me it took me a long time to begin to trust, but also not just other people, but myself, because I'm assuming, Jamie, you can probably relate that it's like all of this, everything you thought was real is no longer real now. So it's a mind F.
Yeah, he was very calculated. Um, when we were living separately, the time difference, 3 hours, it was like he's walking the dog, and that's when he FaceTimes me because he's not in the apartment with his other girlfriend,
Hmm.
or he's calling me at work, or I'm 3 hours behind, so then I'm calling him at work, and it's, like, practically lunchtime almo just very calculated about everything he did so that you did feel like you were the only one. Because how can he be doing all these things when he's talking to you all the time?
Like Courtney said, this had to be exhausting to keep up with. I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah,
I can't
yeah,
imagine trying to keep all the lies straight, the timing straight, the
Mhm.
location straight. I mean, had to be
yeah,
mentally exhausting.
yeah.
And I feel like too, um, like his family didn't know about me, right? I had met some of his family in the California side of it, it was but the Florida side didn't know about me, And some of the friends in Florida didn't know about me, but I was never going to Florida because of the time difference. It was always easier for him to come to me. And so I guess that was the easy way for him to live that double life too.
Mm. And
It's so
meanwhile, I
crazy.
didn't really know anyone in California, but I knew the Florida friends and the Florida family.
Mhm.
And all I'll say is just be glad you didn't meet the Florida family. You're
Well,
not
that's
missing
gonna
out.
bring me maybe to um my next question. Before I ask that, Courtney, do you have any questions or anything? Do you have a dating story of
No,
anything
I'm
similar?
just enjoying listening to the story again. It never gets
Courtney's
old. It never gets old.
And there was so many dots we connected to. Like he told her one thing, and then he's with me and my family in Florida for I don't know Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, whatever, and then he's just so many stories that connected the dots in the time
yeah,
frame, and he
there
didn't
was
go to
this
your 30th birthday because he was doing something with me. I don't know what it was, but
yeah.
just wild.
So many
And then
lies. But it
I know
was it was kind of I mean, we went on for hours literally just piecing things together. Okay, this weekend, he told me he was here. No, he was with me that weekend. And okay, well, what was he doing this time? Well, he was with me. He was here. And it was just wild to really piece together all the lies.
I have 0 experience with this stuff. What is a narcissist or what is that has narcissistic
I
what exactly makes somebody a narcissist or what are narcissistic qualities or traits in a person and like the red flags? Can you explain that a little bit more, Megan?
Yeah, absolutely. And I first just want to start by saying I am as we talk about this, I'm not diagnosing anyone. And I think that the term narcissism or narcissistic, we hear it a lot. I think, almost everyone has a narcissistic ex. Not Courtney, but almost everyone. And so you hear that term kind of thrown around, and I think that's a great question. Like, what actually is it? I mean, all of us can have narcissistic traits at some point in our lives, right? And when I say narcissistic traits, I'm really referring to, um, you know, lacking empathy, being selfish, being validation from others, and really thriving off of that validation from others. And so, at any point in time, we might be stressed or just in an unhealthy relationship. And so those traits might come out. But when we're talking about narcissistic personality disorder, that's a little different. Like actually diagnosing someone with that. When we're talking about that term, we're looking at a pervasive pattern of behavior over time. So it's not just a single instance in time, but over, let's say, a period of years, this pattern that impacts relationships with whether that be, intimate relationships, familial relationships, but it's this pattern of, like I said, really lacking empathy. So not being able to understand or feel for someone else's feelings. And so really just not, they don't get it, not caring about someone else's feelings, really doing things that serve them. So quite selfish, obviously. And also, um, a lot of times when someone does have this personality disorder, when they're criticized or called out in any way, they will react in anger, blow up. They might even get abusive. So, I think that's really the difference between someone necessarily having narcissistic traits. So every once in a while or in a certain situations showing those traits, but also the difference being over time, if that continues and negatively impacts relationships, then we would be looking at potentially a personality disorder.
Is like manipulation a big component? Like a very manipulative person? Is that a part of like narcissism too? Yeah.
Absolutely. So they'll manipulate, lie, steal, cheat to get their way. Oftentimes they'll inflate their sense of self, like make themselves out to be really important and bigger than they are, or more grandiose than they are. And, it really, where it stems from is low self esteem, a very low sense of self. And so that fragile sense of self, now you're protecting yourself. You put this wall up to need that admiration from others, praise from others, and controlling that environment around you so that you're in charge. And manipulation is a big part of that.
Let me just add too, my therapist told me, um, when they're in control, they're manipulating you. And then when you're, not putting up with their shit, like you're in control, the relationship is usually bad. So when they're in control and manipulating you, then the relationship is good, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So as long as things are going their way, we're peachy. But if not, watch out.
So does that start as like childhood trauma or experiences and you grow into that? Or where does that stem from?
Yeah, I think, the research basically shows that some people are just a little more predisposed to that, but a big factor is childhood and your environment as a child. Maybe growing up, I know you mentioned this in previous episodes, Jamie, like having a narcissistic parent can contribute to that because you're observing that behavior, you're learning that same behavior. But yeah, environmental factors definitely play a big role in that, and excessive criticism, inconsistent attachment, emotional neglect, things like that. And basically, if you think about a child losing their self-esteem, they're not getting that praise, that encouragement. And so they grew up feeling like I've got to do everything I can to get that.
Yeah, interesting. Um, do you think that they can change or are they're that forever? They're going to be a narcissist forever.
That's a great question. I think that when it's a personality disorder, I will say clinicians are very careful about diagnosing a personality disorder because the stigma around it, but also you know, again, it needs to be a pervasive pattern over time. And a lot of times when someone's diagnosed with a personality disorder, it kind of signals that that is just who they are and how they are. Now, I will say, yes, people can change. People can always change if they truly want to. So if someone can acknowledge and recognize what's going on, maybe through therapy, talking to a therapist, there's different types of therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy or DBT that is used more often with personality disorders, but it really depends on the individual and their willingness to change. And unfortunately, with narcissism, again, being criticized, told they're wrong, that's really, really difficult for them. So being vulnerable and saying, okay, this is something I need to work on. This is something I need to change, and admitting that can be very difficult.
I guess as like being in a relationship with one, but then also it goes with my dad too, because they've talked about like, I don't know if my dad freaking loved me, which I've found out more since I've last said that on whichever episode that was. Um, I did feel like once that relationship ended with this mutual guy that we dated, I kept finding myself asking like, "But, like, did you love me? Like, did he love me at least? Like, did he actually care about me?" Like, I needed validation that at least, like, he actually cared about me, and I don't know why. I don't know why it matters, like, that we were important to this person. I don't know why I feel that way, but or why I did feel that way.
Considering the environment you grew up in and not really receive, it sounds like, at least from what you've said, that it was very hot and cold. Some days he's buying you every Babysitter's Club book, and then others you're grounded and because you know, use 2 towels. So, it's hard when there's so many ups and downs like that to really truly feel secure in the attachment and the relationship. So, if you don't grow up with a secure attachment, likely later in life that's going to come out in your relationship. So needing that validation, needing to like hear or feel like, okay, did they actually care about me? Did they love me? Makes sense because you were never sure as a child. And so as an adult now you want to know.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think as have worked through therapy, it's something that eventually you can work through. But I think it makes sense with, the environment that you were in.
Jamie, when you were dating your ex, did you ever put those qualities like or connect those qualities with him and your dad? Did you ever notice like a similar pattern or was that not really on your radar?
Good question,
Yeah.
because no, it wasn't. But, um, now I don't know if I asked this in therapy or not, but I remember he didn't like my dad, and my dad didn't like him. So it was
Mm,
2
like
of
butting
the
heads, like, yeah.
same personalities trying to have control over me and manipulate me, right? And
Mhm.
so I think they knew what each other was doing in a sense. So there would just be things that would come up about my dad. Like my dad would do random crap too, like that didn't make sense when I was living out in LA. Then he would chirp in my ear, like, your dad's not a good parent. Like, oh yeah, your dad, like, he'll really come through for you, you know? And then once the whole relationship came out, for some reason, I feel the need to call my dad and tell my dad about it. I don't know why, but for some reason, I would talk to my dad about relationships. And then my dad's like, "You need to get rid of him." All these things. Like, he always thought he kind of just always thought he was bad news. They never met each other either. And
Mm,
then when I rekindled that relationship and was talking to him for a second time, kind of right before I met you, Megan, um, I'm like hiding it. I'm not telling my dad, And then I remember my dad had bought some property in outside of Vegas, and he hadn't been there in like almost a year since he bought the property. And so he asked me to go out there and get the keys to it. So, of course, I took my ex with me, and he went out to the house with me, and I had just told my dad, "Oh, I'm going to go with my roommate." And somehow he talked to the realtor and found out who I was with. And it wasn't like I was telling the realtor, but she's saying, "Oh, she came with a guy." And he's like, "What?" And then I like had to like talk about it. And he's like, "I don't want him in my house. I don't want him near my things." And I'm like,
mm.
"There's nothing in the house." He's not even gonna like, what?
It's literally
I just
empty.
so dramatic about it too, I don't know. But then I found myself lying because then I'm embarrassed, right? And I'm keeping it from people. And then I kept it from Natalie too, And then I find out about another girl later on. I think it was the New York one possibly. She reached out to me. So I had reached out to her, I didn't hear anything, and then one day she responds. And then she's the same whole, "Oh shit, what?" Like, and
Yeah.
I just remember calling Natalie, and then I was like bawling my eyes out because I'm like, he's still doing it. It's still a thing, Like, I got to get out of this. And I think moving helped. Moving to Denver helped
Yeah.
also. But also meeting someone that actually cared about me. And I set rules with him before too. I was kind of like, "Look, what's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. I don't want any of this secretive stuff. I want it to be like the old days where we all had, you had the one house phone. So if someone called it, you never knew who you're going to get to answer it." Like,
Mhm.
not that I was answering his phone, but I just wanted that
Yeah.
transparency in
Yeah,
my
of
next
Yeah.
course.
relationship.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Did I answer your question, Courtney?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I mean,
Well,
it's also hard, like, looking back too, because, like, there's so much new information that's come out since then, right? Like, just even finding out about how he treated you and then all this stuff with your childhood and your dad and stuff. So it's probably hard to connect those dots. Like, hindsight's 2020, but you didn't
Mhm.
know any of this stuff. So it is probably harder to see those similarities. But I just didn't know if, like, looking back, you could kind of put things together, which it sounds like you could. So,
yeah. And then,
mhm.
I mean, having people fooled, right? Having the outsiders, they always want to look great to the outsiders, right?
Mhm.
And like with the therapist that we saw in California, when he shoved me out of the apartment that day, he went back in, grabbed some papers, came back out, and was like, "Here you go. This is what me and the therapist think of you." And it was papers on narcissism and sociopath. And I was like, "What? This is like." And so then, of course, I'm like, I'm going to the therapist by myself because we were going together and then we were going separately. So I don't know obviously what they're talking about. So he's manipulating her clearly. And then
So
I
you
go
were
in.
both going separately and together to the same therapist?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little unethical, but okay.
Is it? I don't know. I didn't
Right?
know.
I
Yeah.
mean, usually when if you're doing couples counseling, I mean, I guess if they're seeing both of you individually, but it can, yeah, it allows exactly for that manipulation on one side, because now
Interesting.
you're talking, it allows for secret keeping. It's just, it's a little frowned upon.
Yeah, okay, good to know. Well, I went back to her. Can't say that he ever went back to her. 'Cause
Probably not.
now it's out, shit's out.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and I described that to her and I told her about you and she was like, I think she was like, "Holy shit," also.
And that's the thing is diagnosing narcissistic personality disorder in particular is extremely difficult because the individual can be so charming and just make you think that they are wonderful, perfectly great, nothing, totally normal. And see, it's hard to get to the truth a
Yeah.
lot of times unless usually it comes from a third party.
And back then, I didn't know these words. Gaslight wasn't a word either.
Love
Mhm.
bombing too, probably
Right?
wasn't.
I had no idea at the time what was happening. Now looking back, I can say that was gaslighting. But yeah, we didn't there was no term for that back then. And it is interesting to now, thinking about everything with your dad, look at the comparisons there. And it does, I hate to say this, but makes sense that you would date someone with those personality traits because
That's what I'm
and,
used to.
same for me. There's we all have a history and a background that I think leads us to whatever connections we make for a reason, but sometimes it's unhealthy, and so we've gotta break that cycle.
Yeah. I did. You did.
I say you both did, so you're doing great.
Yeah,
How does long-term exposure to a narcissist change someone's nervous system or their brain patterns?
great question. So chronic psychological stress can lead to hypervigilance, anxiety, um, difficulty trusting others, obviously. And so many individuals develop this heightened stress response because they've spent years navigating unpredictable emotional environments. So when it comes to your nervous system, you're basically constantly on high alert, and so your stress response is elevated. We have this fight or flight response, right? And so your body is just constantly in that mode where you're at any moment, fight or flight. What's going to happen? When's the ball going to drop? Because you grew up in such an unpredictable environment. Like we were talking about, it was just so hot and cold. And so I think that long-term exposure really can affect the nervous system and that stress response.
What would healing from this type of abuse look like?
That can look different for different people. It often involves rebuilding a person's sense of identity. So, just interesting as we're talking through your story and what you've been through, your identity has really shifted, right? Because who you thought you were, the family you thought you had is different. Not to take away from the family you grew up with, who's very much still your family. You've really now added to that family, but it's an identity shift. So part of recovering from or healing from that narcissistic abuse, it does involve rebuilding that sense of identity and rebuilding your sense of reality. So, beginning to trust your own reality, setting healthy boundaries in relationships, and of course, working in therapy through, those and getting support and helping to reconnect with your own emotions, recognizing unhealthy patterns, and developing relationships that feel safe. And so, it takes time to recover from that or heal from that. But, it really, with support, it's about just rebuilding who you are as a person.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of that in the past year.
Which is great. I think
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and I loved that you did EMDR too. I mean,
Mhm.
that's really great for trauma. For those who don't know what EMDR stands for, it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And so it's a specific type of therapy for trauma, for PTSD, or for victims of trauma to help reduce the emotional impact of traumatic experiences.
Yeah, and I had talked about this experience at my house in Indiana. I've thought of that forever and I've thought, "Oh, there's people in the house, they can hear me, they can hear what's happening," and obviously learning that there wasn't people weren't in the house, like he had them go outside. Um, but I did it for that specific incident. And now it's like, if it was triggering, it's not triggering. Like, I know it happened, I experienced it, but it no longer has weight to
Hmm.
me anymore, I guess, if that makes sense. And it's not that I'm gonna forgive him for what he did. That's not what that's about either. So, yeah. Pineapple. Courtney, do you see any questions on there? Do you wanna ask?
Do you like see I don't know what your specialty is or who you work with necessarily anymore, but do you see narcissists like as part of your patient?
Yeah, that's a tough one in counseling. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
no, I do not, but I know I do have, a good friend. You all met her, who she has. I think the working with personality disorders is extremely it's tough.
I would say that would be so hard because kind of like you said before, they have to want to change, and I feel like that's just very hard for a narcissist to even want
Right.
to. And then I just feel like I would be getting gaslit and manipulated every session, just like your ex did with your therapist, right, Jamie? And so I just yeah, that would be so
It's so
difficult,
hard
I
to
feel like.
diagnose, like I said, because they'll hide it.
Mhm.
And then, so
Yeah,
they'll never truly be honest in therapy, even if they do go to therapy. They'll be, Miss Perfect or Mr. Perfect in counseling, and then someone
that's
completely
right.
different outside of that. So it's so hard to diagnose. And it's also just, if someone is struggling with that, it is very likely, like, again, they have a hard time just owning any sort of faults, mistakes. And so they're not likely to want to change anything because they don't see any faults in themselves.
So what would be if somebody was dating somebody and what would be like the red flags, like right off the bat, that would say, oh, this person has, narcissistic traits, or I mean, kind of like you said too, narcissism, narcissist, that term can kind of be thrown out maybe more often than it should. But what are some like kind of red flags, whether it's a significant other or a boss even, say at work, you know?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because it's not always a romantic relationship or a family relationship. It could be a friend, it could be a coworker, it could be your boss, anyone that you have any of relationship with. And so, some red flags to look out for, I would say, that excessive need for admiration, um, difficulty accepting criticism, lacking empathy, and entitlement, but also the love bombing, that intense early charm to reel you in, and then gaslighting. So, really, and that's part of the manipulation tactics we were talking about, just really making you question your reality. And gaslighting works slowly. Over time, it erodes a person's trust in their own reality. So, blame shifting, um, also control and urgency. Those are big things, red flags to look out for. Urgency really can function as a control tactic. So it prevents people from pausing long enough to think about what's actually happening, what you're being asked to do, or what's going on because it's urgent. You have to do this now, now, now. So you just do it. You don't have time to think about it. And so that's a control tactic. Um, and then again, that inconsistency between idealization and devaluation. One minute they're idolizing you, and the next minute they are criticizing you and, telling you that's wrong. So there's this inconsistent pattern and that emotional instability, which causes confusion and doubt. So those are some red flags to look out for really in any relationship when it comes to narcissism. Um, yeah.
So, Courtney, you've met
Right.
my dad.
Yeah.
So, you've met one. Okay, you've
Yeah.
interacted. What were your
Yeah.
thoughts? Like, what did you think when you first met him? We went dress
Well,
shopping together
yeah, it
one
was
time.
yeah, I would say that was probably the longest I've spent with him is we were wedding dress shopping, and he was that was probably like the bombing, I guess, in a way is what I saw because he was like, "Whatever dress you want, Jamie, I don't care how much it is." I think that's what but, like, I didn't think anything of it at the time. I'm like, "Oh, this is your dad. He wants to buy you whatever dress you want. That's wonderful." But yeah, he was, like, really nice but that's I think, looking back, was like, "Oh, let's all go out to dinner, and I'll buy you guys dinner," but I didn't see anything that, like, stood out as a red flag,
Yeah.
but then I think, we had talked about this too, hearing our friend Allie's experience with him and how he just, like, blew up at, like, the dental office, right? And so it's just like, "Oh, okay, there's that side that I haven't experienced." Yeah, so it's looking back hindsight is always 20/20, but you don't see it at the time.
Yeah, poor Allie.
I know.
I'll tell you what happened, okay? Because I know everyone's like, "What happened? What
What
happened?" Okay.
happened?
So, I was in Arizona. My dad was getting dental work at my office in Colorado. He was there and he needed someone to drive him. So, Allie agreed to drive him. I asked her, I was like, "Could you do me a favor?" And so they get there. Now, the front desk woman is awful. One of the front desk women was awful. She, like, caused a lot of problems throughout the office. Should I say that? Should I say she was awful? No. Okay.
I
I'll
don't
just
know.
skip back. Okay. They get to the office and my dad wasn't a fan of one of the ladies that was working the front desk. Okay. Whatever their conversations on the phone were, I don't know. So instead of just, I'm here, sign in, wait to be brought back, he lays into her what he's like mad at her about already. And from there, it just escalated even more. And I don't know if the woman talked. I have no idea. Allie would have to tell us. But then he was like, I'm not doing it, and walks out. And Allie's just standing there like, I'm sorry, but screaming and yelling in the entryway of the dental office. Like, how embarrassing.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And then he, I think he calls me after she drops him back off at his car. I don't know. I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me? Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Yeah.
Seriously?" God.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she was like probably a deer in headlights, like,
Like, what do I
what did you
say?
say?
happening.
She
I
goes, "I
think
just apologized." I was like, "I'm so sorry." And then I ran out. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
what is something that you wish every child of a narcissistic parent could hear?
That's a great question. I would want them to know that the way that they were treated is not a reflection of their worth. And so, children naturally assume that a parent's behavior must mean something about them, something's wrong with them. And in reality, those dynamics say far more about the limitations of the parent than about the value of the child. So it's more about the adult, not the child, but children internalize that. And so that's what I would want any child who grew up with a narcissistic parent to know, that that was not a reflection of you and your worth and who you are as a person, but a reflection of the parent.
That was a good answer. Uh,
It's, like, heartbreaking too, though, like, thinking about that, like, that's just so heartbreaking.
It
Yeah.
is. Well, it reminds me of that movie, The Help. And Megan, you just told me like you do this with your
I
child,
do.
the you is
You
kind,
is
you is
kind,
loved,
you
like
is
yeah.
smart, you is important.
Mhm.
We do our
Oh,
daily affirmations.
so sweet.
Nice. Um, what I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Like, is it okay is it okay to walk away from your narcissistic parent? Like, do you have to continue a relationship with them? I think that's like a big thing for, I want to say, millennials. There's, I've seen a few articles recently talking about how more and more people our age are walking away from their parents.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think many people, not just dealing with a parent who is narcissistic, but just unhealthy dynamics in general, struggle with. I think because we are brought up and taught that family is your blood is everything, right? That bond is unbreakable. But the reality is that bond is breakable and sometimes has to be broken to preserve your own yourself. And so setting healthy boundaries is extremely important, whatever that may look like. And that's going to be different for every individual, but it is important to set those healthy boundaries in life, whether that be with an ex, with a coworker, or even with a parent. And that's a tough one for a lot of people, especially with parents, because again, as children, we idolize our parents. They know it all, they have all the answers. If there's something wrong, it must be me. And so as we grow into adults, we continue to just think, our parents are our parents. And, if something's wrong in that relationship, it must be me. And that's not always the case. And so sometimes we do have to step away from that relationship to heal and to preserve our own sense of self, sense of identity, sense of self-worth. So it is important to make, to work through that. I would recommend, if you're considering that, working through it with a therapist or a professional, talking through it. Um, but yeah, I think that it's important sometimes to set that boundary.
I was going to ask, what is the difference between, or what's the definition of like a sociopath? Or what's the difference between narcissism or a narcissist and a sociopath? Like, if that's a good question, I don't know. But I just feel like a
No, it
lot of
is, it is.
terms are like kind of interchangeable and thrown out so often that, like, I don't know, just
Well, and
getting.
another one is pathological liar too.
Yeah.
Well, my friend Bella, she was dating
Hmm.
someone, came to the
Hmm.
wedding,
Yep.
um, ends up being all those things.
Which is,
And she
yeah.
had never heard of it ever before. So she was like learning new terms, like, and
Hmm.
telling me about it. But
Yeah. I'm sure there's like similarities with all of them. I'm sure there's like a lot of overlap, but yeah, I just curious. Sociopath, but either one or both. Give us all your knowledge, Megan.
Here,
There we go.
am I back? Okay. All right. So to answer that, there's a lot of similarities, but there's also some differences. Narcissistic behavior is usually driven really by that fragile sense of self, and that person needs validation, control, and admiration to maintain that self-image. Whereas sociopathic behavior involves acting without regard or consequences to others or society. And so, someone who is a sociopath is less concerned with admiration and that status. They're not looking to be, adorned by others, but they do have a similar lack of empathy and, just disregard for others' feelings. And then there's psychopathy or a psychopath, as you'll hear referred to, out there in movies or the media. And that's really that emotional detachment from others. People with psychopathic traits might understand emotions intellectually, like they know what they are, but they don't experience them in the same way. And so, while narcissism is largely about protecting and inflating one's self image, sociopaths and are really more disregarding just rules and the overall well-being of others. And then a psychopath tends to just have a deeper emotional detachment and calculated manipulation. And again, there can be overlap there as well, but that's really where the differences lie. I mean, when you think about narcissism, I think just thinking about someone really needing that admiration and needing that, they rely on being valued by others.
yeah, I can see my dad insecure, the ex insecure, totally.
Yeah,
So I can,
that's
yeah.
where it comes from. Yeah.
Mhm. All right. Any last words? I think we're good. I don't know.
I
Yeah.
did just want to mention
Mhm.
that I think it's so brave of you to do this podcast. I don't think many people in your shoes would put it out there publicly. And you talked in one of the episodes about some of, the backlash that's out there and haters, online haters gonna hate. The internet is a cruel, cruel place. But for anyone who is hating or saying just go to therapy, you don't have to put it out there to the world. I just want to say, from a clinical perspective, this is a great way to take back your narrative, to take back your reality. You grew up being told lies your whole life, and now you know the truth. And so now you're living in a whole different reality and you're taking it and owning it. And I just want to say kudos to you for doing that. And for anyone out there that's spewing hate, says more about you than it does about anyone else. So think about it before you type those responses. But this is, I just want to reiterate that doing this is part of the healing process. And so you're taking ownership now of your story, your reality, and your identity. And I think that that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I will say, like, when I did the first one, or even how it all started, right, with the Instagram reel, I was like, oh shit, oh shit. And then, like, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many views. Oh man, oh man. And then I'm like, this is taking off, I think. And then I'm like, do I need a lawyer? What's going on? And then when we did the first episode, I was still like, okay, it's out there.
Yeah.
And I come from a really small town, so it's like, well, they're gonna know everything now, like, oh
Mhm.
golly. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's scary. I
It's
couldn't
very
do it.
brave.
I'm way too
Yeah.
sensitive. I would see one
Yeah.
negative comment and be like, no, forget it.
Same.
It gets
Yep.
easier. It did get easier for sure. And I will say, at first, there's so many comments coming in, you can't see them all. You can't. I didn't. Every time I
That's
open
a
up the
blessing.
Instagram, the little red flag thing, there was so many I couldn't function. I had to close it. I was like, and so I probably missed a ton, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, well,
Yeah. Very proud of you, Dame.
thank you. Any last words, anything like that? I'm happy that you both are in successful marriages. There's nothing like this that's gonna happen to you guys
Mhm.
from here on out, obviously, and me as well. But thank you for joining. Thank you for answering our questions. You had some really great answers, and I hope it clarifies it for some people that may not even know what it is or have maybe experiencing it and not realizing it.
Right.
All those things, right? Um, Courtney, anything? Last words? Anything?
No, this was fun.
You're
Yeah.
like, when can
Happy
we
to be
meet
a part of
again?
your tribe. I
Yeah.
feel like now you have a whole tribe. It's not even just
For
family. You've got
sure.
a tribe,
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know everyone's like,
Absolutely.
I want to meet your brother. Someone else wrote, I think the best thing out of this is your brother. Like everyone is
Aw.
lots of good comments coming in from that last episode. They really enjoyed him. All right, until next time, thanks for joining us. Bye.